All right, folks, I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the regular meeting for the Town of Lodi for April 2020. At this time, you may stand or remain seated for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. And give me one moment to do my cool little trick here. There we are. And I suppose I'll begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag
The flag
United
of the
States of
United
America,
States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one
one
nation,
nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
justice for all.
Thanks, folks. As you can see tonight, we are holding our meeting online as we've been given permission by the governor to do so. Many municipalities are trying many different options here, most of which are just live streaming, but I think it's pivotal that we have the public involved and able to ask questions and keep our business as transparent as possible. At this time, Connie, can you give us a roll call, please?
Supervisor Barnhart.
Present.
Deputy Supervisor Latini. Luke, are you there?
He's here. He's on mute at the moment. Try it again, Luke.
Sorry, team. Hi, I'm here.
Thank you.
Gotcha. Councilman Sibley?
Here.
Councilman Batman?
Paul won't be present tonight.
And Councilman Seth Thomas. Myself, and who is our attorney this evening?
Frank Fisher, I'm here.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher.
Thank you, Connie. We do have a quorum present tonight. I have attached the April agenda. It is relatively short and sweet. Does anybody have any additions for the agenda tonight? I will move this meeting a little bit slower to allow people to have time to respond and think about things. Hearing no additions to the agenda, we do have last month's meeting minutes attached, and town board members, I have sent these to you in advance. Would anybody like to make a motion to approve the March meeting minutes?
A motion.
Thank you, Seth, making the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Trevor. All in favor
Thank
of
you,
approving,
gentlemen.
all in favor of approving last month's minutes, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried and minutes approved. I've sent over 3 emails over the past few days with all of our bills for March. I just sent over 2 more vouchers to be approved, one of which is significant. It is a payment to T.G. Miller, engineers who looked at the Cat's Elbow Bridge as we apply for FEMA reimbursement to rebuild that bridge. So does anybody need more time to look at those bills? Hearing no appeals for extensions, all in favor of approving this month's bills, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried, bills paid.
Excuse me, Mr. Supervisor, who made the first on the motion and the second?
You ask great questions, Connie. Let me try that one again. Do I have a motion to pay the bills?
Kyle made the motion.
Thank
He
you.
made the motion.
And who
You made
do I have a second to pay the bills?
Second.
Thank you, Trevor. We'll vote one more time. All in favor of paying the bills, please say aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Any opposed? Motion carried, bills paid. Thank you, Carol, for the help there. At this time, I'd like to open up the meeting to some public comments. I don't know if anybody has any questions regarding our current status or anything at all. There will be another opportunity for public comment near the end of the meeting, but at this time, if anybody has any questions or comments, we'd be happy to hear them. Where's my back row? Frank, Mike Huff, Rick Jaycott? Can I put you in a back row on this meeting?
I thought
All right,
I saw Frank.
hearing no public comments. Rick, if you're on the line, we would love to hear a highway report.
just took my paper. Service some of the vehicles, fixed part of Shaw Road, raked in some roads, did some other service work, got a paid payment of $32,444. Their share of the first checks we got.
Great.
That's about it.
How's it going down at the barns, Rick? How many, just to inform the public, we essentially reduced our employees' hours down at the barns to 0. How is that effectively working, Rick?
That's working all right.
Are they still coming in? Are you bringing some of the guys in, all of the guys in?
On nice days, they'd come in and do some stuff around, and we're keeping stuff pretty well caught up.
Okay. Any, are you anticipating any issues going forward? At this point, my assumption is that we'll be doing something like this remotely through July. I know the state is taking it month by month, and they've effectively canceled April on us and haven't given us any further indications, but the federal government has passed unemployment benefits through the end of July, so that's sort of the time frame that I'm working with. Do you anticipate any issues going forward with the crew through July?
We should be all set. The only thing they're wondering about is if you're still gonna have the Easter egg on Sunday.
That's a great question. I don't think so, Rick, unfortunately. But if they want to come hide some eggs around my house for my kid to run around with, that'd be fine by me.
All right. That's all I got.
Thank you, Rick. I'll entertain a motion to accept the highway report.
I'll make a motion, Kyle.
That's Luke making the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Trevor in first for a second. All in favor of approving the highway report, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Highway report accepted. Connie, do you have a town clerk report for us tonight?
Absolutely. In clerk's fees from the town collected the amount of $123 meant for general funds remitted to Town Supervisor Mr. Barnhart, check 363. On the 6th, which was Monday and Tuesday, we finalized our tax levies and payments. The county gave us 5 gold stars this year, right down to the penny. In finalization, the final amount remitted to the town supervisor for general funds was $1,001,668.75, an adjusted total of levies and interest value, not bad for 90 days work. And then last amount paid out, making my town clerk account $1 that keeps it open for the off season. Final payment was $77,094.39 to Seneca County, concluding our tax season. In addition to that, the office is open very limited hours, trying to limit contacts. Some of the things that I do are non-essential. That's pretty much my report. Finished up taxes, nothing big going on. Coming in a couple days a week, just making sure that we don't fall up behind, helping everybody in every way possible, and that's it. That's all I have.
Great, Connie. Good job. Good to hear. Thanks to those of you who paid your taxes late and pushed us up over $1 million. We appreciate that. I will entertain a motion to accept the town clerk report.
I'll make a motion, Kyle.
Luke has made the motion. I believe I saw Trevor before Seth, so I'll say Luke made the motion, Trevor with the second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Clerk's report accepted.
Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. Good job. At this point, I'll ask any of the other board members if we have any committee reports. I will go through them one by one just to ask. Seth, anything on ag and environment from this month?
No.
Thank you. Mr. Batman is out for economic development, planning, and tourism, as well as government ops and criminal justice. I'll roll some of that into my supervisor's report coming up next. Luke, anything from finance or federal affairs?
Nothing to report, Kyle.
Thank you. And Trevor, anything from public works or highway?
Nothing to report.
How's it going up at the county?
It's going good. It's 5 guys on, and you have 3 weeks off, just trying to keep holes patched and whatnot. So,
Is that 4 rotating crews?
yes.
Wow.
So that way, if somebody gets sick, you don't quarantine everybody, just possibly just that crew so we can keep doing business.
Sure, sure. Well, good luck. Thank you. All right, at this point, county board report and town supervisor remarks. I do have some remarks prepared, and in the spirit of an online meeting, I have kept them brief, in my opinion. The Seneca County Board of Supervisors has doubled up on its meetings, holding them in succession on the same night in order to avoid multiple meetings week after week. So we actually met in our committee in the last Tuesday of March, and then immediately following that committee meeting, we met as a full board in our general meeting and passed everything that came out of, well, not that we passed everything, but heard everything that came out of committees. Social distancing guidelines were practiced. We moved our desks more than 6 feet away from each other, and the meeting was live streamed on the internet. I'm not sure if we'll repeat that process at the end of the month, again this month, and have our committee meetings and our regular meetings back to back, or if we'll have an online video or teleconference. I haven't gotten any information on that, but I do have some hesitation about such a large group continuing to meet in person. So I'll be pushing for the board to meet remotely, whether it's through Zoom or some other video conference. You know, there's 14 supervisors, there's an attorney, there's the county manager, and there's a clerk, and a deputy clerk. That's 18 people. That violates the governor's order, in my opinion, of no gatherings larger than 10 people. So I'll be pushing the chairman to find a different approach. To our residents that are listening tonight, I do urge you to take the spread of the coronavirus seriously and pass that message along to your neighbors. We now have over a dozen confirmed cases in Seneca County, and that number is continuing to grow. Many of our residents in Lodi are in the exact risk pool that this virus hits the hardest, and it is important that we take the precautions to keep our residents healthy and alive. My contact number is listed on the Town of Lodi website. Please don't hesitate to call me or contact me for just about anything, and I'll do my best to make sure someone, whether it's myself or someone from the town, can help you out with whatever it may be. Again, please spread that to your neighbors. I know a lot of us need help grocery shopping and doing other things, so don't hesitate to reach out. A couple more things. Our new dog control officer, Jamie Vengalio, she has hit the ground running in her new role. She's also the dog control officer for the town of Ovid. One of the things that she's done over the past month is to create a Facebook page that is called Ovid and Lodi NY Dog Control Officer. I'd encourage all of you to like and subscribe to that page so that we can all help each other get our lost dogs back home. And if you don't know, there's another well-known Facebook page called Lost Dogs at the Finger Lakes that's really helpful in returning lost animals to their homes. So try to like Jamie's page and continue supporting her as she does the best that she can. Lastly, I'd just like to thank the town board, the clerk, our bookkeeper, our highway super, and really all of the folks who work for the town of Lodi for being understanding as we navigate through the current crisis. And thanks to you folks who have stepped up to help organize our community, work on email lists, and encourage me to do the same, and getting the word out about this meeting, as well as organizations like the food pantry, which are so essential in this moment. I just wanted to say a big thank you. Thank you so much. And in regards to the food pantry, I know the county is making a particular push to help out the countywide food pantries. I know that they're doing, I don't have all the details in front of me, but a sort of a drive-through pickup. And I think they've been contacting each of the pantries to see how they can help or to supplement the offerings. Carol might know a little bit more about that. That concludes my remarks for the county board report. Carol, did you want to add anything in regards to the pantry?
No, I have not heard from the county yet. We are getting cash donations because we're having to purchase quite a bit of our food now because we've had to stop donations that have been handled by many people. So we go out and purchase the food that we put in our boxes. We have a drive-through so that no one gets out of their car.
Great.
It's worked very well so far. I hope it's not going to be snowing on Saturday because those folks are having to be outside during most of the time. But we're continuing to contact other people and coordinate as best we can. We work with both Oven and Interlaken pantries and share information and food when we have extra. Going well so far.
Good to hear, Carol. I heard the county chairman of the board tracked you down at your farm.
Yes. Yes.
Good
I
to
didn't
hear.
recognize him. He was wearing a mask.
Hopefully, yeah, I won't comment on that. I think his significant other was encouraging him to make donations throughout the south end of the county. So good
That's
for her.
nice.
Thank you, Carol. We appreciate that. At this point, we will turn to old business, and the only piece of old business on the agenda tonight is the proposal for the map plan and report and preliminary engineering report for the municipal water program from Hunt Engineers. We've been talking about this for, well, on my watch since January, but realistically, this process has been going on since, I'd say, January 2019. Over on the side where it says participants in chat, I have uploaded the proposal and the agreement for services that if this passes, we will enter into. At this point, I'll entertain a motion to untable this to bring this in front of the board. Is there a motion?
Make a motion.
Seth with the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Luke. Any discussion about the map plan and report? If needed, and if we do have questions, I can call Peter Martin with Hunt Engineers and he can join the call. Chuck Franzese did join us last month to talk about this and he answered most of our questions. Luke, for your reference, Connie did do some verbatim recording of that. That was in the minutes from March that we approved.
Thank you.
Does anybody have? Go ahead.
I was going to say, Kyle, I think the thing that that's important, and we reviewed together as well, is there's a lot of community concern outside of the village that, perhaps the value isn't felt or seen. So if you have, if you're going to increase levy, you're going to raise levy, you're going to raise taxes, you're going to raise money to provide water to constituents along 414, as well as the village, but yet the community, basically the better part of the town, provides resource to that. I think there's a lot of concern over who pays for that. If there's not a direct benefit per parcel, then it becomes very challenging to tax on a per parcel basis. And I think the model that you proposed, which will focus on water districts, so you'd have the village water district, and then you'd have the 414 corridor water district. I think that makes a lot of sense. So the investment of the town proper is to, at least put forth the effort to identify, in addition to what has been done previously, identify, what the scope of project is and the details for the project, which then allows us to look at the secondary funding. And so I think that is very palatable to the constituents that I've spoken with. And maybe just for everyone's edification on the call tonight, if you could reiterate the maybe more detail of those water districts and also the available funding, because we were looking previously at federal funding versus state funding. So the funding arm, maybe if you could reiterate that as we spoke of, and then the function of isolating the costs from those that do not directly benefit from the water service.
Absolutely, Luke. I'd love to touch on that. Give me one moment, please.
Yes.
Sorry, constituent is reaching out via text. So let me touch on that. I'll start by saying that this proposal for a preliminary engineering report and MAT plan report will cost the town $8,000. It's my belief that this $8,000 cost will be the only shared cost for all constituents of the town. After this, going forward, costs will only be shared by those inside the water district. And as Luke touched on, there will be two districts. One district that will run from the southern border of Lodi, the county line, where we'll be drawing water from Hector. That district will run up the 414 corridor only and will not branch off of that. And when it reaches the village will then form their own district and they will purchase water from the town. So the town of Lodi will purchase water from Hector. The village of Lodi will purchase water from the town of Lodi. The reason that we're doing it this way is because what Luke mentioned with state funding. Prior to this year and last year, it was USDA funding that we were looking at, and the town did not qualify because we did not hit certain poverty levels because we have, well, frankly, it's because we have nicer houses down at the lake mostly. The village does qualify for federal poverty funding. However, that's going to end up, that's in their court, not the town's court, and they will simply just get 0% interest loans or extremely low interest loans. For our funding, we have an opportunity here because the state has opened up very special funding called WIA funding, Water Infrastructure and Improvement Act. Before this year, they were willing to fund, I believe it was 20% of the project or, no, excuse me, it's 60% of the project or $3 million, whichever was lesser. However, this year, the governor has taken off the cap on the $3 million. So we can actually get 60% of this project funded. In total, the initial estimates, and frankly, I shouldn't be sharing these because they're not official. The initial estimates is that this is about a $15 million project. The village is going to take a significant chunk of that. A loose estimate would be about half, but it could be a little under or a little over. So when you think about it, we're going to end up with about an $8 million bill with about 60% of that financed or with grant funding. So we might have a $2 million bond over the course of 30 years or so. For reference, we just talked about a town hall project that was a $1.2 million bond over 30 years, and that ends up being about a $47,000 payment per year. This would be, if it's 2 million, a little less than double that. However, instead of it coming from the general tax base into the budget, this will be debt service, and that debt service will be carried only by the people inside the district. Whether or not a residence or a business decides to hook up to the water line after it is installed, they will be responsible for the debt service nonetheless. That is sort of a carrot and a stick. You really want them to connect because you want customers for municipal water. So they will share the debt service whether they choose to or not. The other part to this project is the intention that we will fund all of the hookups through the project. So each individual residence and business won't have to pay whatever that cost is, whether it's $500, $2,000. It'll be rolled into the cost of the project to once again promote the idea of gaining customers. And the last little bit that I'll add here is there are numerous studies out there that show the economic benefit and the economic development of a water district or a municipal water project. The more that we see development along that corridor and the more that we see development in the village, the debt service for each of those properties will go down because we're sharing more of it. If there are more businesses and more residences and more parcels, that debt service will be watered down a little bit. So while we'll start at what I believe will be around $600 or $700 per parcel per year in debt service, I do believe that we'll work that down over the next 10 years or so to be much more manageable. That being said, still open for discussion. Any questions about that?
Kyle, that 15 million was for the town and village?
Yeah, that's the entire, well, we look, again, I'm a little ahead of putting the cart in front of the horse, if you will, in sharing these numbers. I've sort of seen documents that aren't official. The long story is we looked at 3 projects. We looked at building our own. We looked at coming from Ovid. We looked at coming from Hector. And coming from Hector was the what we think is the most beneficial solution. And that project was right around $15 million. I think Ovid was the least expensive project, and building our own was very close to what it would be to pull from Hector. What will happen is if we pass this, we will immediately get the preliminary engineering report and the map planner report. And the preliminary engineering report has those early estimates. I've already seen a draft copy of it that was produced last January. So we should have more information fairly shortly after we pass this. I'll also say that this proposal is for $8,000. We have a $15,000 contingency budget that we can pull from to do this. And the governor has also said that municipal water projects are essential services. And so work on this project will continue despite the current situation regarding the coronavirus. So if we pass this, we shouldn't see many delays. I was informed by Peter Martin from Hunt Engineers that they may delay the consolidated funding application deadline, which is usually in July with awards granted in December. We may see a delay in that because of the state offices not being open. So that might be the only hitch. You know, they estimated a 3 to 4 year process in total from passing this to turning on the valves and customers having water. So, you know, my assumption is we might have a 4 to 6 month delay on that.
Kyle, what happens if the people can't afford that $500, $600, $700 per parcel to hook up? Who will inevitably be responsible for the person not being able to afford that when it goes past their parcel on 414 or in the village? You know, there's a potential chance that these people may not be able to afford that. Who's gonna cover that absence of somebody not making a payment, I guess?
Yeah, that's a great question, Trevor. I don't know the actual answer, but what we did in the village when I was mayor of the village is if you didn't pay your sewer bill, it would just get tacked onto your taxes. So there were a few folks who did that, and at the end of the year, you know, the sewer fees got tacked onto their taxes, and they either get paid or they don't. Most people, you know, they have the 3 years to pay off, so most people do. You know, I'm sensitive to this. I grew up fairly poverty stricken. I know it's tough to make ends meet, especially out here. I know we have a lot of folks on fixed incomes. I know that doing this promotes economic development, and in the village, I'm particularly sensitive to it because I know a lot of folks whose families have lived in those houses for generations. And, you know, $600 a year is about $50 per month, and that's another bill. And a lot of people are already having a hard time paying bills. So I am sensitive to it. I don't have the answer on who would pay it if they don't pay it, Trevor. The one thing that I like and dislike about this is with economic development comes an increase in assessments. So a lot of folks, especially in the village, will immediately perceive their taxes to go up because I assume their assessments will rise, you know, $10,000 or $20,000 per property. So although we won't be raising taxes, they'll feel like it. And I hate the idea of anybody having to leave their family home after owning it for a few generations or having to sell it because they can't afford it. At the same time, this is the most depressed village in the area. I get a lot of calls from the county about social distancing, especially from Ovid, saying, I got people at the grocery store, I got people here, I got people there, and I just can't share that pain with them because we don't have anywhere to go. So there is a line there that I think we have to have economic development, we have to promote it, but at the same time, we have to be sensitive to not be forcing people out. But that's just the village. For the town, most of the folks that we'll be servicing are commercial properties. I know there's a lot of residences down there, but most of this is going to drive commercial establishments, wineries, breweries, hotels, campsites, and things like that. That was a long answer to not answer your question, Trevor. But
Just a big step, that's all. Just thinking outside the box.
yeah, I haven't done the math on our town barns bond. That was $47,000 a year, and I think we have something like 900 and some parcels in the town, something to that effect. Doing some quick math, that's 400 and something bucks a year per parcel. People are paying it right now, and hopefully that goes away. That bond payment goes away. So, I think it's our job to probably reduce some spending or to lower some taxes to maybe mitigate that. And if we have success in the project that we haven't spoken publicly about yet regarding the town hall, if we have some success lowering those costs, I think we can probably even this out, at least take a dent out of that 600. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. What other questions do we have about the MAP plan and report? Luke, did you get the email that I sent you with the former working document from January 2019?
Yes, thank you, Kyle.
So I forwarded Luke a document that was in my email that I think Supervisor Davidson sent me last year when he was meeting with Hunt Engineers about this water project. And essentially, it was the document that we'll be getting out of passing this. And I thought it was pretty hefty. It was pretty significant. What we'll get is an updated version of that. And board members, I will forward that to you after this meeting. I guess the rest of this is in your court, guys. I don't want to push anything on you, but I'd love to be able to vote on this tonight. Anybody else have any concerns?
Kyle, one quick question on the fee. I think it's $8,000. We've been a good customer of Hunt Engineering. Just wondering if now, it was quoted at 8K when our economy was strong. We didn't have COVID-19 to deal with and contend with. Most of our constituents that were in the working age group were working. And now the spend, the deliverable is a few months later is the same at 8K. I'm just wondering if it would be prudent to ask for a reduction, because the cost of a new vehicle 2 months ago is not the same of a new vehicle today. We can get some sort of discount. I'm not sure if we've already committed to this, but just wondering perhaps maybe a 10%, 15% reduction based on lightening of loads, because in the commercial, at least the contacts that I have in the commercial space, drafters, designers, engineers, architects have had a lot of projects put on hold or canceled. So I'm just wondering if, just with the caveat, we pass it today at 8K, but when you go to execute, the board recommends, or maybe part of that would be negotiating some either like, kind, and quality service in the future, or a 10 or 15% discount, based on the spend that we have today, and the majority of our workforce is unemployed, type of thing.
Yeah, great question, Luke. I'm happy to engage with Hunt on that. My assumption on the answer that I'm going to get is this work's already done.
Okay.
So, again, I forwarded you on the last page of the agreement for services, there's a fee summary, and it breaks it down: $3,500 for the PER, $3,500 for the map plan and report, and then $1,000 to modify the original PER.
Okay.
So I think that, I'm happy to ask. They might give me a little leeway on the modification, but I don't expect that it's going to be in the 10% range, but I can certainly ask.
Wonderful.
We do have 30 days. They gave us net 30 to pay it when we pass it. But yeah. And then I worked with Hunt on the infiltration and inflow for village sewer, and they were really, really helpful when it came to like and in-kind services. They really helped the village that didn't have the money to get a $36,000 grant. They helped work with the village to knock down our share by doing a lot of like and in-kind services. So this part, this team of Hunt, the Chuck Franzese, the Peter Martin, the water group, I do have a lot of confidence in and have liked working with them so far. But yes, I will follow up, Luke.
Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments about this resolution?
Hey Kyle, this is Maura to a resident. Sorry,
Maura?
Spur. I don't know why it came up as a Spur. I think it somehow you put me in there as a Spur.
That's cool. It's hip. It's trending.
But anyway, it is Maura to a resident Lodi. But here's my question, kind of taking off of the last question. Like this bond or this funding that could come from the state, you know, we watch Governor Cuomo every day with all his great news, but like, is that at risk? Are things going to change related to dollars available for things, projects like this, based on everything that's going on with the state at this stage?
You know, that's a great question, Maura. We're looking at a lot of budget shortfalls with the state. You know, one of the things I've been looking at is how this is going to affect the town financially, and how the virus is going to affect the town financially. And I haven't been able to identify how it will hurt the town. You know, we don't see any sales tax sharing from the county, so those numbers won't be altered. It's not going to affect property values as far as we know. So I don't think the finances on the town level will change. As for the state, my understanding is that the WIA funding has already been committed. They've been doing this for 3 or 4 years. And the grants have already been allocated in last year's budget and the budget before. So my assumption would be that perhaps going forward, they might reduce the amount of grants, but I have no way of knowing. What I do know is that there are innumerable municipalities throughout upstate New York that all built water systems in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s, and all of those water systems are beginning to deteriorate and all are in need of improvements, which is why the governor has billions and billions. I think it's at 1.6 billion they've spent on water infrastructure improvements so far. So I don't know going forward, but right now applying for the consolidated funding application, there is currently money available. And if the money's not there, Maura, we're not committing ourselves to do something. We're not committing to spend money until we have the grant money in place. So there's no risk in passing this because we are simply paying engineers for a service to give us, the engineering report and the map planner report. But outside of this, we have no further commitment to waste taxpayers' money on a project that doesn't happen.
Well, thank you so
And
much. Appreciate it.
I'd like to say something too, that with all the things going on with COVID-19, that this might be the best time to really push for going ahead because there might not be money in the future. So if there is money already allocated, like now is our only chance to go ahead with this.
I agree. I have a little optimism too, because the governor went out of his way to say water and sewer infrastructure projects will continue as essential services. The construction will continue, the work on these will continue. So although I can't read his mind, that gives me a little hope that this is important to him and they're going to continue working on this. Any further discussion from the board about this? All right, I think we can move it to a vote. All in favor of?
Kyle,
Frank?
yeah, I'm a caveman at this stuff, okay? Kyle, one question for me is we go ahead with this, where does that leave us with the new building? I mean,
Completely unrelated, Frank.
well, won't the taxes go up for the new building and then for the water too?
Well, no. The simple
Okay.
answer there is no.
That's all I wanted to know.
It's
That's
cool.
all.
I'll explain it. I like to hear myself talk. The new building, we are currently we had a bond for the new building that was about $47,000 per year, shared by all of the taxpayers in the town. When that bond ended, we continued taxing residents at the same level as before the bond expired. And we took that money and we rolled it into the building fund. So essentially, you're seeing a tax neutral project at the moment on the town hall building. If we can commit to a town hall building that is $1.2 million or less, you will not see any raising of taxes regarding the town hall project. My hope, as I've shared with the board in executive session, is that we will be able to build a new town hall or renovate a current building for a town hall at a much lesser cost. And instead of seeing a tax increase, my hope is that you will see a tax decrease. We will return some of those town barn monies back to the residents and stop putting it in a building reserve because the building will be built. For the water, the only people that will have any tax impacts, and they're not actually tax impacts, but the only people who will see any financial impacts are people along the 414 corridor and people within the village.
Yes.
Frank, you folks down at the lake will have absolutely nothing to do with water, except for the fact that water should bring businesses to the village, and those businesses you will be frequenting, I certainly hope. We're going to spend this $8,000 if this passes tonight, but that has also already been budgeted this year. So again, you won't be seeing any tax impacts from either of these projects if all goes well.
Excellent. Excellent.
Right? That's what we're trying to do.
Kyle, Frank Fisher need to talk.
Hey, Frank.
Okay, just procedurally, if I might point out, unless I missed something, you now have a motion which was passed to remove this issue from the table. I don't believe anyone's made a motion or seconded a motion to pass this yet.
Thank you, Frank.
So you need that.
Okay, at this point, I will entertain a motion to accept the proposal from Hunt Engineers to provide the Town of Lodi with an environmental engineering report and a map plan report for district formation for municipal water. Is there a motion out there?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Seth. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Luke. I was hoping not to have to do it myself. With a motion and a second and a lot of discussion, I'll give one more option for discussion here. Does anybody have any last questions before we move this to a vote? Very well. All in favor of accepting this proposal, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried, proposal accepted. Thank you, board. Do any board members have any other old business tonight? I don't think we do. I'll touch on, we got some checks for FEMA reimbursements. I mentioned that last month. At this point, I think we're beginning to take the long, hard look at Cat's Elbow. We passed the bill tonight. It's really interesting what has to happen. As Rick and I have been following along, they actually have to find out what the cost is to rebuild that bridge exactly like it was when it was first built. That's a little absurd to some of us because it was a train car with a road over it, and they don't make bridges like that anymore. So once they have that number, then they can also come up with a number to build the new bridge as it should be built. And so they're working on that now, and that'll end up being a pretty significant payment that we'll have to end up engaging with that community to see how and if we should rebuild that bridge. Outside of that, I don't think I have any other old business tonight. Does anybody have any new business? Okay, hearing no new business, we'll begin to wrap this up. Thanks for pitching in on comments, Maura. Does anybody else have any public comments? This is sort of the last opportunity here before we adjourn.
I have one more,
Please,
Maura.
What do you have?
Just a shout out. Thank you to the town. Shaw Road has their new sign up. I noticed it and it's wonderful. So thank you very much.
Nice. Well done, Rick.
He said you're welcome.
Fair enough.
It's beautiful.
Thank you, Maura.
Very
We appreciate that. We appreciate that. Any further public comments? Well, I will thank you all for showing up. Maura, Marjorie, Carol, Jack. Nice to see you around, Jack. Silent Chad here. Judy David, as always. Anissa, Frank, Karen. Just great to have you all and great to keep attendance up. MC, I don't forget about you. MC led the efforts to light a fire, so I got a mailing list out there to make sure everybody knew about this. I think it went pretty well. Zoom is a pretty interesting platform. I know we've all heard a lot about security issues, but this being a public meeting, I wasn't too concerned if some random person popped in. I could have booted them pretty quick. Actually, a little disappointed I didn't have any excitement there. Outside of that, announcements. There was going to be a SWIO meeting, a Seneca Watershed Intermunicipal Organization meeting at the firehouse in April. The governor's announcement canceling April has effectively ended that. So I don't know when the next SWIO meeting will be. Seth, maybe they'll keep you in the loop on that. Our next board meeting will be May 14th. At this time, again, the governor has only issued the pause order through the end of April. So I'm going to leave you all in a little bit of a limbo if we'll do this or if we'll have a public meeting. So I think the best way to proceed at this time is to assume that we'll have the meeting in person. And then I'll use all of the normal channels to tell you otherwise if that's the case. I do have a little bit of an email list now, and I know some of you have forwarded emails on to other people. So thank you very much for doing that. With nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. I think that was Trevor on the first and Seth on the second. All in favor of adjourning this meeting, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried, meeting adjourned. Thank you, Lodi. You're wonderful. I appreciate you all.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Kyle.
Thank you, Kyle. Good job.
Thank you. Good job to you too. Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you.
you.
Supervisor,
Yes,
Kyle?
Connie. Yes, Connie.
will you call my private line immediately for clarity, please?
You got it.
Thank you. Have a
Good
good
night,
night,
everyone.
everyone.
Everybody stay safe.
You too.
You as well. Good night.